Hi, dear students. Good morning. United we stand, divided we fall. The proverb is quite familiar to every one of us. It mainly depicts that when we stand together or when we have an interaction with many people with a strong bond, we remain united. And when we are united, we can withstand all stresses as well as all adversities can be overcome when we stand united. But when we remain divided, uh, we fall or we fail to overcome the stresses. This particular proverb, as we all know, is quite applicable to every living organisms. Let it be the humans, let it be the animals, or let it be the insects. Uh, the interactions between organisms are being found to be beneficial in one way or the other. And there is no exemption for microbes also from this. You can see that when microbes occur as a group, when they are being found to be in as we have noticed in the case of biofilms and all that, they can overcome a lot of stress. Now, what type of stress? Even the process of denaturation action of the detergents or any toxic agents can be overcome by the production of various biofilms and all that. So, in a whole, when we look, the interactions between organisms as well as all living forms is quite relevant. In a ant family or in an ant colony specifically talking, we can see that various ants interact and they do various functions, and that brings about the stability and the strength of the ant population or the ant colony. Similarly, here, when we talk about microbes, they are being found to be microscopic living forms, but they also do have an interaction with each other as well as interaction with the surrounding. And these interactions which the microbes have with each other as well as the other organisms which have been present in its surrounding referred to as a microbial population. Now, if you go to consider in an ecological perspective, you can see that the term population is mainly used when same species living in an area is being considered. And we consider the topic of community when group of different populations living in the same area are being considered. Now, in the picture which we show here, the giant pandas in a forest refers to as a population of panda, and in the case of community, it mainly considers all the different plants and animals in a forest which have been interacting with the panda in this particular example over here. And the term ecosystem is normally referred to as the living and the non-living factors that will make up an area. Now, we quite common describe the concept of ecology as well as population and community, considering to what to larger living forms. But at the same time, in the case of microbes, also such a concept of population and community also is being found. If you go to consider population, you can say the different species of microbes will constitute a what? A population. And when the microbial species or the microbial populations of different environments interact with various other populations. Now, what other populations? It can be plants, it can be animals, or it can be another species or another population of a microorganism with which it interacts. In such a case, it will form a community. So what I need to tell you is the microbes also they live in a community sort of environment where they do have such interactions. And these interactions can be with different forms. It can be either with the soil, in the soil, the organisms which have been found in the soil, or it could be in the plant environment, or it could be in the water, or it could be with the human environment, or it can be with the various other foodborne elements or anything like that. So wherever the microbes can be present, they come into interaction with its surrounding environmental elements. Let it be living as well as non-living variants, they would have some interactions. And that's what we are going to talk about. Now, the most common type of interaction which has been present is symbiosis. Symbiosis is a type of interaction in which an organism comes into contact with a host and they live in together in harmony. Now, it could be a situation in which the organism or the microbe, which we consider here, is being present on the what on the surface of the host cell. If it has been present on the surface of the host cell, we consider it to be as an ectosymbiont. And after that, there's another possible way in which it can be what? Endosymbiotic. Now, the term endosymbiotic is most commonly considered when the organism lives within the cell. That is, it enters into the cell and lives in harmony with the host over here. At the same time, one more possibility is there where it has been found to be extracellular here. Okay, it is found to be extracellular, but it is at the same time surrounded by different cells in. But most frequently, we consider ectosymbiont as outside the cell and inside the cell as endosymbiont. But of course, sometimes you also do see that though it is extracellular, it could be like enclosed by endosymbionts. So the process of symbiosis is a type of positive interaction which could happen in the case of microbes. And we can see that there are some interactions which have been found to be intermittent or cyclic. That is, it does not occur throughout the life of the organism. At some time, the microbe might have some interactions that they have been considered to be as cyclic or intermittent. One such interaction which we can be consider here is in the case of cyanobacterium and tropical angiosperms. Now, cyanobacterium nostoc, it's a free living nitrogen fixer and it can be found to be associated with the angiosperms. As well as we have Anabana, which has been associated with the Azolla. And the example of rhizobium, that is the symbiotic nitrogen fixer, which has been present in a leguminous plant, is also been quite familiar to us. And we also have a protobacterium, which can live in angiosperms. And then we have, in the case of marine animals, you can see that various coral coelentrates, and especially in the case of coral coelentrates, you can see some dinoflagellates which are having cyclic symbiosis. And in the case of fish, their fluorescence or they might have a specific color when they are being present in the water, mainly because they have been associated with various microbes such as Vibrio and Photobacterium. So these are examples of intermittent type or cyclic type of symbiosis where a permanent symbiosis is not needed. For some time they might be symbiotic and sometimes they can be also being found to be as not associated with a particular host. And another type of symbiosis which we can see, or another type of interaction that we can see is where permanent symbiosis can be found between different organisms. One case is, as we see here, is in the case of squid. We can see that Luminous bacteria like Vibrio fishery will give luminescence to the particular organism. And in the case of leech, the medicinal leech that we use, your Hirudo medicinalis, you can see that various bacteria are there. And one among them, Aeromonas veroni, is quite important because it increases the blood digestion. And if you go to talk about the aphid species, we have Bachnera aphidicola, which will help to provide amino acid synthesis for the aphids. And if you have nematode worms, we have luminous bacteria, which will help them in predation as well as in antibiotic synthesis. This luminous bacteria will give a luminescence for the worm, and it will also help to give the functions. Of course, lighting facility is there. At the same time, the concept of predation and antibiotic synthesis is availed by the bacteria to the worm. And if you go to look a shipworm mollusk, you can see that a gill in the gill cell bacterium, it will provide a cellulose digestion as well as nitrogen fixation contribution towards the shipworm mollusks. So, at a overall, when we consider the microbial interactions, microbes can have interactions with either plants or with animals, and these interactions could be sometimes cyclic as well as sometimes it could be permanent. And some of them, as we have mentioned earlier, some can live as free living forms, and some can also live as symbiotic also. And in this session or in the coming sessions which we have here, we would be discussing the various microbial interactions. Now I'll just show you one example which has come across uh, every most of the internet. You can see the squid which has been fluorescing, and it has mainly been found associated with bacteria such as Vibrio fischeri. Okay, and it produces light mainly because of the presence of this bacteria. So it's like it gives a torchlight for the squid. And the squid also, it doesn't mean that the squid doesn't have an eye, but it gives an extra feature. And in the marine organisms, most of the organisms which have been found to be fluorescing and all that, we can see that most of them are being found to have association with these microbes. So thank you for now. We will be continuing in the next session.